Hi you guys, this is Rebekah with Learning Together by Grace. So today's video, I'm going to be focusing on 5 from scratch weeknight dinners that you can do quickly to get dinner on the table for your family. Are y'all ready? Let's get going. So I'm going to be doing a stuffed pepper casserole for this particular meal. It includes ground beef, so a pound of that. I'm doing a can of diced rotel, diced tomatoes, and a can of tomato sauce. I'm doing a cup of rice, 2 peppers. It can be bell pepper or I'm using red and yellow pepper, a medium onion, 3 cloves of garlic. I have some fresh oregano here, salt, cayenne pepper, black pepper, paprika, garlic powder with parsley, cumin, and a little bit of oil. I'm also going to get some bone broth out for this meal as well. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm using a cast iron to cook this in so that it can go in the oven. You can also use a stainless steel pan.
So what I like to do whenever I begin cooking, I like to chop up all of my fresh items first. So I'm going in and chopping up my oregano, crushing and dicing my garlic, and then I'm going to do the same with my onion as well as with my peppers. And this just makes the process easier when it comes time to cook everything. So here I am heating up my cast iron over the stove top, and I'm adding in some avocado oil, and I am making sure that the bottom of the pan is covered nicely before I begin cooking. So here's a pound of ground beef that I'm going to mash up with my masher, and then I'm going to go in and begin seasoning it. So I'm going in with some cracked black pepper as well as some sea salt. I like to season my meat before I add any extra ingredients, just to make sure that my meat has flavor. And now I'm just stirring that all together, and then I add in my peppers and onions and mix that. Now I'm going to begin seasoning everything. I'm taking my ground cumin first, and I'm using about a teaspoon of ground cumin. And then I'm going in with my garlic powder with parsley seasoning, and I'm adding about a teaspoon of that as well. Next up is paprika, and we're adding a teaspoon of paprika. And then I'm going in with some more cracked black pepper. I'm just doing this to taste, so my personal liking. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of cayenne pepper because I like a little heat. And then I'm going in with some of this sea salt, and I'm seasoning it to taste. So that was probably close to a teaspoon. Now I'm just going to mix all of that together so that the seasonings can get mixed in, as well as the peppers and onion into the ground beef. And then I'm going to add in my can of tomato sauce. This is a 14-ounce can of tomato sauce, and then a 10-ounce can of rotel diced tomatoes. Now I'm going in with my frozen bone broth. If you have a carton of bone broth, you won't have to allow it to melt, but because I make my own, I usually freeze it, and this is going to have to melt for a little bit. So I'm covering it with a pan that I have, and then adding my rice. So I use probably about a cup of bone broth, and then I'm adding in a half a can of water to this mixture and stirring it in. So now I'm going in and adding in those seasonings to the pot again. What I like to do when I'm cooking is making sure that I have flavor throughout my entire dish. I feel like this is what separates a good cook from a great cook. And so I kind of consider myself a great cook. You can ask my family and see what they think. But this ensures that you're going to get those flavors in every single layer that you add to a dish. So make sure that you're not over seasoning, however, and I think the key is to not overdo it with the salt. I sprinkle the salt on so that it won't become overpowering. Now I'm just mixing that all in together so that the rice gets incorporated, and then I'm going to cover it and allow it to simmer for about 5 minutes. Next, I'm adding it to a preheated oven at 350 degrees, and I'm going to cover it and allow it to cook for 20 minutes. We are looking for the rice to be completely done when we take it out of the oven. Now I'm just going and making a salad using some tomatoes that I had, as well as some cucumber. And then I'm going to cut up some onion. I'm only using a small piece of onion for this salad because I really want the fresh basil from my herb garden to shine in this particular salad. And now I'm just chopping up some garlic and adding that to the mix. And then I am chopping up the basil and adding it as well. Now I'm just creating a salad dressing using some avocado oil. I'm using some white wine vinegar, some cracked black pepper, as well as some sea salt to season it. And I'm just going to mix all of that together to infuse those lovely flavors. Now the last thing for this dish is cheddar cheese. So I'm cutting up some cheddar cheese and sprinkling it on top, and then I am going to add this back into my oven and allow it to cook for 5 minutes to melt it. And this is what it looks like. And you guys, this was really a hit with my family. It was easy to make, hearty, and very delicious. Now this next meal is a chicken dish that I made up. So I am going in and chopping up some mushrooms. These are baby Bella mushrooms, and I'm just slicing them. I have this stick of celery that I am going to chop and then dice up. And then I am going to cut this onion up and dice it as well. And then I have 2 cloves of garlic that I am going to crush. And then I'm going to chop those up and then mince them as well. And next up, I am going to cut up some of my fresh basil from my garden. You guys, it's so fun to use herbs that are fresh from your garden. And then I'm going to also cut up some fresh oregano from my garden for this dish as well. So now I am going in and seasoning up some chicken breast. This chicken breast came from a whole chicken that I cut up, and I am using some paprika, some garlic powder with parsley seasoning, some cracked black pepper, as well as some sea salt. And I know you see the cream cheese carton over to the side. That is going to be a part of the dish later on. This is going to be a yummy, creamy chicken dish. You guys are going to see. So now I'm using some avocado oil to coat the bottom of my heated stainless steel pan, and then I'm going to go in and add the chicken. As best as I can, I'm adding it skin side up first, and then later on, after I get done allowing this to cook for about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to allow the other side to cook for 2 minutes. Now, I am not trying to fully cook my chicken because when I complete the meal later on, the chicken is going to get fully cooked in the sauce that I'm going to be creating with the cream cheese. I'm so excited for you guys to see the next few steps to this creation. All right, so now I'm just taking my chicken out of my pan and I am going to set it to the side. So next up, I'm adding in those mushrooms and those onions that I cut up, and that celery as well. And I'm just going to use those drippings from the chicken and the oil to saute those vegetables. Now I'm just adding in some of those same seasonings that I used to season my chicken, and this is going to give those vegetables a really nice flavor. Now I'm just going to stir all of that together to make sure that it gets incorporated very well, and then we are going to move on to the next step. And now I am going to add in some of the bone broth that I had set aside. This is probably about 1.5 cups of bone broth, and I'm going to allow that to melt and cover that. Now that it's fully melted, I'm just going to stir it all together just to make sure that it is incorporated well. And then I'm going in with about 1.5 cups of whole milk, because this is going to help create my sauce. And I'm just stirring that to incorporate it. And then I'm adding in half of those fresh herbs that I chopped up a little earlier. Now that I have done that, it is time for the cream cheese. So this is an 8-ounce pack of cream cheese that I'm adding to my skillet, and I'm just going to use my spoon to help stir it around so that it can begin to melt and incorporate nicely into my milk. And so now that it has melted a little bit more, what I'm going to do is cover it and allow this to simmer. Now that this has simmered for about 2 to 3 minutes, I am going to add in a bag of frozen broccoli to this dish. This is going to help add some more vegetables and more nutrients to this homemade dish. And so I'm going to then go in and season the broccoli with those exact same seasonings. Again, like I said, I like to layer the seasonings on so that the dish will be flavorful throughout. And then I'm going to mix all of that together, and then I am going to cover it and allow this broccoli to cook for about 5 minutes. Now that the broccoli is done, I'm going to stir it, and then it is time to add in my chicken. Now I'm making sure that I get this chicken nestled nicely into this sauce, because I do want the chicken to absorb the flavors from the sauce. And I gotta get those extra bits, y'all. Alright, so now that I've allowed this to cook for about 5 minutes, my chicken is done. It's nice and tender. And now I am just sprinkling the dish with the last half of those fresh herbs from my garden. And so you guys, this is what it looks like, and this is how it looks plated up with a salad on the side. It was so good, y'all. These are the ingredients to my next dish. I am going to be making an apple pork chop. You guys, you have to try incorporating fruit into your dishes if you have not with your meats. It is so delicious. So first off, I'm going in and making some rice. I am seasoning it with some garlic powder with parsley, some cracked black pepper, some salt, and then I'm going to add in some avocado oil and mix that together. And then I'm going to add in my water. I always make sure that my water is a ½ inch above my rice when I'm cooking it. So I'm going to allow that to cook. It'll take about 20 to 25 minutes. Next, I am going to make these Normandy frozen vegetables. I'm adding in some water to the bottom of my pot, and then I'm going to season it with cracked black pepper, some garlic powder with parsley, and some salt. And then I am going to add in some oil to finish it off, and then mix it all in together. And then I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to allow this to cook on medium high heat for about 15 minutes. Next up are my apples. So this is the fruit of choice, and I'm using my apple slicer to get the cores out of the apple and to just begin the slicing process of the apples. And then I am going to chop them with my knife. And as you can see, I had a little visitor to come and take some of these sweet, yummy apples. So now I am going to take half of an onion and I'm going to cut it up as well. And with this, I'm just cutting it into thin slices, and then I'm going to keep the strips long. And then I have 1 clove of garlic that I am crushing, I'm slicing, and then mincing up. So now it is time for me to season my pork loin. I cut these up from a whole pork loin that I purchased at Costco. It was in one of my shopping grocery hauls, and so you can go and watch that if you're interested. But I'm seasoning it with the paprika, the cracked black pepper, as well as some salt. And this was already pre-cleaned and it was frozen, so I just took it out of my freezer and allowed it to thaw in my refrigerator for a couple of days. Now I'm just using the bag to help me mix all of those seasonings up. I'm just checking to make sure that my pan is hot, and then I'm adding in some avocado oil to coat the bottom of my pan. I'm going in with the pork loin and I'm just going to sear it on both sides. So it takes only a few minutes for pork loin or pork chops to cook, so I'm only allowing it to stay on that one side for about 2 minutes just to make sure that it's brown. And then I flip it and I cook the other side as well. I do this because I want to be able to seal in the moistures and not cook it all the way before I add the final ingredients. So now I'm taking my meat out and I'm going to set it to the side, and then I'm going to get started with the onions and those apples. We're using the drippings from the pork loin to saute the onions and to get those apples cooked up as well. So now what we're wanting to do is add in some honey, because this is going to give it a nice sweet flavor. I'm probably adding in about 2 tablespoons of honey here, and then I'm going in with those same seasonings just to layer on those seasonings. And then I'm going to begin stirring all of that together just to get the honey incorporated with the apples and the onions, just to make kind of a glaze. And lastly, I am going to add in some water, just enough to cover the bottom of the pan, not too much. And then I'm going to cover this and I'm going to allow that to cook for 5 minutes. Now that it has cooked for that amount of time, I am going to add my pork chops back into my pan, and I am going to allow these to finish up the cooking process, which it won't take long at all, because again, it doesn't take pork loins or pork chops to cook. I'm adding in my chopped up garlic and just making sure that it is incorporated, and then I'm going to cover it for about 5 minutes. And then you guys, it is done. And so I am just loving the fragrances that are coming from this dish. It was so delicious, you guys. My family really loved it, so I was happy about it, and this is what it looks like. All right, next up, we are going to be making a shrimp rice stir fry for this particular meal. So I'm going in with the paprika, the garlic powder with parsley seasoning, cracked black pepper, and salt. I know you see my peaches over there soaking in the water. These are from my peach tree. And so now that I have those seasonings in there, I'm just going to mix it all together to make sure that it is seasoned well. And now I'm going in with an onion. I'm only using 1/3 of this onion. It was a pretty large onion. I didn't want the onion to be overwhelming. And then I'm using a clove of garlic and I am dicing that up as well. So now we are going to be using some green peas, some corn, and you want to use some leftover rice if possible. If not, you can make it, you know, the same day, but the leftover rice is going to give you what you're looking for. So I'm using the coconut oil to coat the bottom of my pan. So now I am just adding my shrimp into my pan, and I'm going to allow it to fully cook. It's going to cook about a minute or two on each side. Shrimp takes minutes to cook, you guys. You can overcook shrimp really fast. So after I get done flipping it, I take it out, and then I am going to add in some more of that coconut oil to my pan, and then I am going to get started with those vegetables. So first we're going in with our onion, and I'm just going to fry that up in the pan and mix that in really well. And then I'm adding in 2 cups of corn here, and then 2 cups of the peas, and I'm going to stir that all up. And then I'm going to add in those same seasonings that I added to the shrimp, the paprika, the garlic powder with parsley seasoning, cracked black pepper, as well as some salt. You guys, I'm using these seasonings for each dish, but each dish has its own unique flavor. You would be amazed. So now that I've stirred and incorporated those seasonings in, I'm going to cover this and allow it to cook for about 3 to 4 minutes. And now that it is done, it's time to add in my garlic and mix that in well with the corn and peas and onion mixture. Now it's time for that rice. I'm adding probably about 4 cups of rice to this dish, and I'm just going to incorporate that into the dish by mixing it in and just chopping up the pieces that kind of clump together. And then, you guessed it, I'm gonna add some more coconut oil because I'm trying to get that takeout feel, and usually fried rice has like this oiliness to it, so that is why I'm adding in the extra coconut oil. All right, so now that I have that incorporated, I am going to go in again and layer on some more of those seasonings. Now, I want to be honest with you guys, with this particular dish, I should not have added any more salt to it. Although it was still very good, this extra little bit of salt that I added was too much. Not overly, but it was just a tad bit too much, but it was still very good. And next, I'm adding in some liquid aminos. This is an alternative to soy sauce, and this is what I like to use. And then I'm going to stir all of that together, add in my shrimp, and then I'm going to give it one last little bit of stir to make sure that the shrimp is incorporated in there. And then, you guys, this dish is done. It was so easy to make, and it really was delicious. Like I said, just a little bit of salt was a bit much. And here it is all plated up. So this next dish is going to be a fish dish. I am going to be making a butter lemon herb fish. When I say butter lemon herb, you guys, whoo, okay, you're going to see. So we are going to have a side of roasted potatoes with this particular dish, and I just cut up the tomatoes into small like-sized pieces. I'm adding some garlic powder with parsley on there, some cracked black pepper, as well as some sea salt. And then I am going to drizzle some of the avocado oil on top of that. And then after I do that, I am just going to use my hands and mix all of that together just to get those seasonings nice and incorporated and every piece of potato nice and coated. So I'm gonna lay it all flat and spread it out. I'm adding those to a preheated oven at 375 degrees and I'm going to cook it and turn those over halfway through. So now here I am rolling a large lemon because I want to get it nice and soft for squeezing. I'm going to remove the seeds as well. So here I am with those potatoes, and I'm just flipping them so that they can get cooked evenly on both sides. Now, for my other side, we are just going to use some frozen broccoli. A lot of times during the weeknight, I like to use frozen foods because it makes getting nutritious food on the table really fast. And frozen vegetables and fruits, they don't take long to cook up. So I'm using some seasoning, this no salt seasoning from Costco, some cracked black pepper, as well as some salt and some avocado oil. I'm also adding just a little bit of water to the bottom of this, and I'm going to allow it to cook for about 15 minutes on medium-high heat. I'm seasoning my fish up with some garlic powder with parsley seasoning, some cracked black pepper, and some salt. By the way, this fish is flounder, and I got it from Walmart, and it was frozen. So now I'm just going to move the fish around, and I'm just going to get the seasoned pieces and rub some of them off to the other pieces so that I can get the fish seasoned evenly. Now I am adding avocado oil to my heated stainless steel pan, as well as some butter, and I'm just going to coat the bottom of my pan with those two. Now I'm adding in my fish, and I'm going to cook it for about 2 minutes on each side. Fish is another meat that does not take long to cook at all. You could quickly overcook it. So about 1 to 2 minutes, and then you're going to flip it. And then after that, I am just going to squeeze my lemon on top of it. I only used half of a lemon for the amount of fish that I had. And I'm just removing one of the seeds that got in there. And now I'm just drizzling some butter on top of that. And then I am going to top it off with some fresh oregano from my garden. Now here is my dish all plated up. You guys, when I tell you this fish was phenomenal, it was restaurant quality phenomenal. You should definitely try it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you are enjoying the videos I am releasing. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share so that people know what we're doing over here, and hit that notification bell so you know when I post another video. You guys, God bless you and take care. Bye.